Today was the start of the Vikings' voluntary offseason program, and according to Jeremy Fowler, Danielle Hunter will not be in attendance. I'm a firm believer in the full meaning of the word voluntary. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to make a big fuss about a player not showing up for voluntary activities. As it relates to Danielle Hunter, though, who's coming off a 10 and a half sack season after missing all but just 7 games the previous 2 years before that, in the final year of his current deal, set to make just $5 million in 2023. Expecting him to show up for that, that's just disrespectful. If durability were still a question mark, then sure, I get it, but he played in all 17 games last year. He's 28 years old, still in his prime. I think you have to get a new deal done for 99, within reason, of course. He's great, but he's not TJ Watt money great. And having the second worst defense last year, you're obviously trying to improve on that. You don't do that by not having Danielle Hunter on the team. Furthermore, I'm not so sure that Brian Flores still passes up a head coaching gig with the understanding that Hunter is not a member of the Minnesota Vikings. And if you're going into next season with the intention of Kirk Cousins not being on the books the following year, then a new deal for Hunter should be no problem at all. But on the off chance that this goes into a stalemate, Vikings front office, they then look to the trade market. What could the Vikings fetch in a deal for Danielle Hunter last year? 10 and a half sacks, 12 tackles for losses. Bradley Chubb, also with a significant injury history, missing 24 games over 3 years, hasn't had a double-digit sack season since his rookie year in 2018. Chubb last year gets traded to Miami for a first, a fourth, and Chase Edmonds. That right there tells me that the starting point on a potential Danielle Hunter trade is a first and a third round pick, nothing less. And if you're a team that laughs at that offer, then okay, we'll just re-sign him and keep him. But good luck trying to find a respectable alternative. But say you find a trade partner that agrees. Would you rather have, in fact, write this in the comment section, would you rather have an extra first and a third round pick or Danielle Hunter? For me, it depends. If it's a first for this year, then I'd pass because that would give Minnesota even more motivation to trade up for a guy like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. No thanks. If it's a 2024 first, 2 first round picks total that year, could pull a Carolina Panthers move, give up the loot for the number 1 pick. And with the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. The third round pick, it's whatever. It could be for this year, sure. Might mess around and draft Jervon Dexter and Rashay Rice. But if we're talking a 2024 first for Danielle Hunter, I think I'd do it, man. This might be the way. Let the rest of the league fight over the project quarterbacks in this year's draft because that's what's available right now. But patience is a virtue. At some point in time, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, they're going to want their own guy. This might be the best path. And specifically with Caleb Williams, it might be possible as long as the team with the first overall pick isn't Washington, Vegas, Atlanta, or Tampa. Any other team like Chicago this year, they're set at quarterback and are more likely to be open for business. It's a thought. Danielle Hunter could very well be the yellow brick road that leads to the next franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Give it odds, I'd say more likely a new deal gets done. 80% he stays, 20% he gets traded. Alternatively, let's say it's a first round pick. They do trade him, get a 2023 first round pick, and they don't end up reaching for a quarterback. You could end up with guys in the first round like Zay Flowers and Kalijah Kancey. Not too shabby. But I'm telling you right now, if a trade goes down and the Vikings get a 2024 first round pick, the master plan will be in place. Thoughtful Ways says, so let me get this straight. You're taking a safety to sit in the bullpen in the first round, meaning Brian Branch from the last video. For all that, you might as well draft a quarterback and have them sit. Take made no sense. Well, that's what happens when you do a draft with a theme of best player available. It doesn't matter what position that they play or the players that you currently have on your roster that plays the same position. If they're best player available, you figure out the rest later. Rebel Viking 912 says, I think they're keeping him for trade bait during the draft. I mean, whatever it takes. I don't care at this point. I'm over the Dalvin Cook situation. I'm over his agent, Zach Hiller. Just go ahead and get it done. You need to free up some cap space to sign your draft picks. This needs to get done, whether he gets traded or released. But in a perfect world, trade candidates such as Dalvin Cook, Za'Darius Smith, and Danielle Hunter could bring back a pretty penny for the Minnesota Vikings, is all I'm saying. T-Lex704 says, Hey Randy, this is just a question. I've been wondering, if you grew up around DC, how did you become a Mavs and Vikings fan? What made you choose those teams? Love your content. Keep it up. Well, thank you, T-Lex. I appreciate that. And to answer your question, grew up in the DC area. Could never identify with the Washington Commanders or the Washington Bullets, what we now know as the Washington Wizards. But in 2000, became a fan of both the Vikings and the Mavericks because of two players, one for each team. For the Vikings, it's simple, Randy Moss. And I don't care what nobody says. Everybody talks about Jerry Rice. Oh my God. I know what my eyes saw. Randy Moss is the greatest receiver of all time. He made quarterbacks. Air Bud could be Randy Moss's quarterback, and he would still put up 15 touchdowns a year. Easy. And as for the Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki, man, and no disrespect to KG, who had arguably the greatest mid-range shot of all time. His mid-range was cash. But Dirk Nowitzki, the first true stretch big man that could be a threat at all three levels, in the paint, at mid-range, at the three-point line. I've never seen anything like it. He really paved the way for what you're seeing now, stretch five, stretch fours. It's incredible. So that's why I became a fan of both teams.